Recording in progress.
So our three guests today, I will start with Nicoletta Nesler and Marilisa Piga, who are the filmmakers.
Good afternoon.
And they met in Sardinia in 1991. That same year, they started a collaboration, first in Rai Radio Studios, and later by making a few documentary films for Rai 3 series, True Stories. The authors share a common passionate search for an innovative language to deal with major social topics, particularly the condition of people with disabilities. In time, the scope of their work has widened to follow new pathways to represent reality by casting light on relationship stories and experiences. Their main project is currently the Lunàdigas project, focusing on women who are voluntary childless. As a child-free women themselves, the authors explore the reasons for a choice that is never light-hearted, but barely talked about, or that is kept hidden. Daniela Travaglini is a qualified freelance translator and subtitler who graduated from the Institute of Linguistics in London. She mainly works with audiovisual projects and loves to engage with the authors directly in order to find the best rhythm between text, image, and sound. And I believe they're gonna discuss more about their collaborations during our class today. So if you wanna start, you can start talking about your experience, your film, explaining what you think it might be of interest for our students. And then after about 30 minutes, we're gonna ask you some questions. And I believe students might have some questions for you as well. Quindi se volete iniziare adesso, avete tutto il tempo a vostra disposizione per presentare il vostro lavoro e le tematiche che per voi sono più importanti, e poi apriremo alle domande da parte degli studenti. Grazie per essere con noi oggi.
Grazie.
Thank you, Laura. So I will talk on behalf of all of us at the Lunàdigas. So I will introduce the project, where we're coming from, and where the author started from, and how the project actually grew in the last 7 or 8 years, I think, even more. So as Laura introduced Marilisa and Nicoletta, they met in the early 90s, and they worked in radio, TV, and they made many documentaries. Then around 2010, they started, they felt that the need and the urge to actually investigate, as Laura mentioned before, the life of women who chose not to have children. And they started from their own experience, as I was mentioned, that they are child-free women themselves. And they started traveling all around Italy to interview women and listen to their reasons and the feelings behind the choice, because we have to put this into perspective. I think this is quite interesting in the Italian background, cultural background, where motherhood is still very much the norm. And so the choice of not having children is something that's also not very much appreciated, and I personally feel in the Italian culture there is a kind of sort of bipolar approach to motherhood, because it's very much expected. Women are expected to be mothers, but on the other hand, sometimes society fails to support women after childbirth. So, you know, that's a very interesting thing, I think, because it's the celebration of motherhood on one hand, but then the failing of supporting women. And on this, we have women who actually choose not to have children, which are not seen as, it's like if they're not fulfilling a duty or their task somehow. So they started to really feel the urge to investigate further. And so they traveled all around Italy. And it was a very much, I could say, an intersectional approach, because they have different ages, different classes, people coming from different backgrounds, to actually have a very broadened, you know, they really broadened the research. And they had collected many testimonials from women all around Italy. So after that, it was like this was like a kind of safe space for people, for women to speak out something that in Italy it was not so easy actually to speak about. And this, I think we're talking about 2010 when they started collecting all the interviews, and this huge work. The first step is actually in 2015. It came out as a web doc. So that was the start somehow, the anniversary of Lunàdigas. It actually was a couple of days ago in 2015. So we just celebrated the birthday of the web doc, and which was available online. And this was the first step, taking us to actually the film itself, which came out in 2016, and where the author themselves actually put themselves into the picture, also, sharing their own experience, and with a very, with adding something to the web doc, because it was a film. So also the iconic presence of the authors was back to like the ambient was like in the 50s, because it reminded something of the childhood. So it's I mean, you've seen the movie, so that's where it brought. And but the movie and the web doc was made thanks to these hundreds of interviews that they've actually done all around Italy. And then they felt to actually say, okay, so we have such a wealth of testimonials, so many voices who very generously talked about very intimate topics, and they felt the responsibility to actually make them live somewhere else. Because of course, when you do interviews, you probably interview a person for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and then you just take 1.5 minutes, for the editing of the film. So you had so much material, and very precious material, that they decided they wanted to create this live archive, which somehow was already something was already on the website. But in 2020, when I actually met them, when I started to collaborate with them, they decided that the next step would have been to actually have what we call live archive. First of all, because it's you make all these voices live outside the film, because they're the very important offering from the people who actually were interviewed. And on the other hand, it's live because it's a work in progress. I mean, we have a lot of material that was collected for the film, but that's something that we keep doing it. So we started to do that, and it broadened the goal, the aim, because we actually have a very professional approach also to the archive, because we have archive curators. There is me for the translations and the subtitles. So each and every interview is translated. We're talking about the Italian women that have been women, and also some men that have been interviewed. And each and every interview is translated in English and in subtitled in Italian and in English. And we take great care to actually do this kind of work, to take care of the whole product, and in each and every sense. And this is also archived now. We use in a very professional platform. So we collaborate with some archive curators, and then also with people communicate, for the communication. So basically, the journey of this Lunàdigas, it started with a web doc, and then the film, and then with all the materials we gathered for the film, we created this live archive in Italian. And then what we are doing actually also from last year is taking all this new experience in the professional fields. So you have archive curators, then you have translator, you have somebody for social media. So we have a set of people doing the work for the archive. And we are creating also an educational path. So creating a format for workshops to be brought into schools and universities, when you actually have the whole process. So from how do the shooting, how do the framing, how to actually approach people you want to interview. You know, there are many suggestions and tips, and for the translation, for the archives. So it's really, I think what's beautiful, it's where it came from and the way it grew. I mean, the growth, it's really something adding a little step along the way. And it must be said that the film actually traveled around the world because it went to many festivals and is still, you know, actually going around festivals. And every time they went to somewhere, every time they went abroad with the movie, they took the opportunity to actually interview some other women. And so now we are we have a lot of voices also from international voices. So that's probably what's going to be our next step, which we have not started yet. But because the question was, we know that what the cultural situation in Italy. So we know that in Italy, it's much more common to ask a woman, why don't you have children, rather than say, do you want to have children? So it's being the norm. So what we wanted to see, actually, having gone around the world with the movie, and actually see, is this the same happening in other countries? I mean, is this the same approach, or what is the different approach to motherhood in countries probably with more progressive laws or more progressive cultures, like Germany, for example, where we have some interviews we took in Germany, compared to countries like Argentina, where we have all the green tide movement for the abortion laws. So you have, you know, of course, different approach and different laws. So that's very interesting that we started from Italy, and but then it's taking its life somewhere else, because it is very interesting to actually see how do we position ourselves compared to other countries and other culture, because it was intersectional in Italy in terms of different cultural backgrounds, different classes, but now it's also interesting to see also from other countries. I mean, where we are, is this a similar approach, or is it surprising for some people coming from other cultures that in Italy motherhood is still so much the norm? And I think it's a very, very, very interesting development of the original idea that Nicoletta and Marilisa had. And I think that the main thing is that all the people who generously gave their testimonials and they were interviewed, the main thing is that it was not judgmental. So there was no judgment. So women felt very free to actually express and themselves and the reasons why they chose not to have children. Or also, it's like it's really like a safe space, you know. It's like a space where you can express and speak out about these very intimate topics. And the journey it took, I think it's really amazing, because it went step by step. It added on each and every step. It opened up to new. Also research, because it's very interesting now. It was mainly women interviewed, but then we also have published recently a few interviews to men, and also in some international in our international interviews we have some students, some boys. So it's really opening up. I think it started focusing on the choice not to be mothers, and now it's evolving into different approach to parenthood in general, which I think it's a very interesting development, and it really shows how much the project grew with what all the people gave, and you know, it makes you open up to other things you want to research deeper, I think. And I don't know if Nicoletta or Marilisa, because also for the interviews themselves, we have different kinds, so which is probably interest for somebody, you know, who wants to do documentaries. So you have some where just one person talking, some there are two partners together giving, you know, like a two-voice interview. But one of the most interesting ones are probably the group ones, and which it's very lively. It can be difficult sometimes on my part, for example, to translate and subtitle, because it's you know, people intervening, you know, talking on each other and things like that. But I think they're very special in a way. It's really like you can see how the way the debate goes according to what experience is actually shared. So it's I think it's a very interesting journey also in terms of actually really cinematic documentary studies, you know, the different way you can approach a person, how you actually can introduce some things, but then you leave the person take, you know, her path and speak about what what she feels. It's actually very interesting. I think seeing first the film and then going and watch the whole interviews. I mean, not all of them, of course, but you know, you can pick and choose. And this platform that we're using for the archive is a professional platform that is used also for like Istituto Luce or other documentaries are archived there. And it's very interesting because we have two ways to approach it. It's like if you have someone who's just strolling around and say, oh, let's see what's on the Lunàdigas website, you can go on the live archive and just see what there is there. And then you can choose to see something. But then you can actually go on a more advanced research, which is more for the person, actually for a researcher or somebody, you know, working on cinema, want to do something, working on women rights. And so you can actually do the research in a very detailed way where you can enter the keywords and you get all the various extracts. And then that was a very huge work, thanks to our archive curators especially. And I think it's an amazing tool for, it's like it's a way of leaving a legacy somehow, because you have all these voices that will live through the archive, and we can think sometimes in the future, or future researchers who can go and dig into each and every one of the interviews and look for, you know, try to find what they're looking for. I think as a presentation of the project is quite, I don't think I have forgotten any of the steps because it makes such a, you know, big journey but I think, you know, the main steps are there. So basically interesting for, you know, cinema studies is web doc, and then the film, and then, you know, using all the interviews and create an archive, and then give this back to, you know, to the students and university and schools in the forms of a format where you can have all the different steps that you do to make an interview and to archive it.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for this presentation of your project. Now I would like to ask everybody, my students, but also we have some other guests. If you have questions, you can post them on the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask directly to the Lunàdigas. So I'm gonna wait for your questions. You can start writing on the chat or raising your hand. In the meantime, I'm gonna start with probably one question I'm interested in developing, since the students have seen the movie, and you mentioned that these interviews are mainly interviews to women, but there are also some men. And since these impossible monologues are an important part of the project and of the film as well, and they have been published, I just wanted to ask you something more about the perception of Lunàdigas from men who have participated to the project, so to the publication of the impossible monologues, but also other men that you have met during your project. And in your opinion, what's the difference between so non-motherhood and non-fatherhood in contemporary Italian society? So I'm gonna translate in Italian. For Nicoletta e Marilisa, visto che avete parlato del vostro progetto e sono state fatte interviste a donne e a qualche uomo, soprattutto donne, abbiamo detto, e anche nel film si vedono soprattutto voci femminili, però c'è un importante progetto che appare anche nel film, che è quello di questi dialoghi, monologhi impossibili, dove c'è, in fondo sono scritti da un uomo, e la voce degli uomini è anche una voce molto importante su questo argomento. E ero curiosa appunto di domandarvi qualcosa su questa voce maschile, e in particolare come la non maternità o la non paternità è vissuta dagli uomini, quindi in che cosa è diversa o uguale alla percezione delle donne.
Se credete, inizio io questa risposta, soprattutto osservando. Gli studenti avranno notato che nel film non ci sono uomini, se non quei ragazzini alla fine. Dani, così o più lunghe?
Okay. So Nicoletta is saying, as you have seen in the movies, there are no men in the film except the boys at the very end of the film.
Questo ha una ragione. Naturalmente in quegli anni della raccolta di quelle testimonianze, Marilisa ed io abbiamo pensato di incontrare anche degli uomini su questo argomento.
Okay, so there's a reason that at the time when the interviews were collected, they were thinking, I mean, they wanted to start with women, that they were thinking about taking interviews from the men as well.
Ma siamo presto rimaste deluse, perché gli uomini rimandavano alle loro compagne le ragioni di questa scelta.
But they were quite disappointed because the men they asked, that basically when they were asked about parenthood, that they actually referred back to the women about the choice. So they didn't take their own answer to the question.
Quindi ci siamo rivolte in caso alle loro compagne, non a loro.
So in that case, when that was the case, we actually asked their partners and not to them, the men.
Ma qui c'è una delle cose che consideriamo alle quali assistiamo e che consideriamo una grande, bellissima notizia, ed è che nel tempo gli uomini iniziano a rispondere in un'altra maniera.
But we have welcomed very much the news that actually with time the answers from the men have changed, and they have started to open up, and they have a different approach from what it was back then when we started collecting the interviews.
Incontriamo oggi, perché non abbiamo mai smesso di raccogliere nuove testimonianze, ci interessano moltissimo le testimonianze delle persone giovani che ci danno proprio il polso di un cambiamento culturale e storico.
Okay.
E troviamo giovani consapevoli oggi che hanno delle loro personali motivazioni per scegliere o non scegliere la paternità.
with the new interviews that we are having, we are taking in the last, more recently, we have met with men and we have met with young men, because we're very interested also in the younger generation. And we realized that especially in the younger generation, the men are actually taking responsibility for this choice as well, and not only referring the choice finally to be made by the woman.
Questo è uno degli sviluppi che dà più speranza.
This is one of the developments that give us greatest hopes for the future.
Se Marilisa vuole parlare dei monologhi, perché è un'importantissima figura nella costruzione di Lunàdigas, è stato Carlo Antonio Borghi. Isa.
Marilisa, ti fa piacere aggiungere qualcosa sui monologhi impossibili? Non ti sentiamo.
Non ti sentiamo.
Eccomi qua, ora sì. Sì, aggiungo questo. Abbiamo chiesto, Nicoletta ed io, a Carlo Antonio Borghi di scrivere proprio qualcosa su figure femminili varie. Mi fermo, Daniela?
Yes. So Nicoletta and Marilisa have asked Carlo Antonio Borghi, a writer and performer, to write something about different female figures, female characters.
Gli abbiamo chiesto di cercare figure femminili della storia, del mito, della letteratura, del cinema, anche quelle che magari sapevamo non avevano potuto avere figli.
Okay, so they've asked the author to write, to take inspiration from women, from historical women, mythological women, women from the past, women in the cinema, and not only women who chose not to have children, because some of them we knew that they could not have children, but still they were with no children.
Quindi l'autore si è documentato molto bene sulle vite di una serie di donne, mi pare siano più di 30, se non ricordo male, e da lì in poi le ha fatte anche un po', si è inventato in qualche modo questi monologhi assolutamente impossibili, come dice il titolo.
So the author delved deeper into the lives of these women and then made up these monologues, which are actually called impossible monologues, of 35 women, of mythological and historical women. So he delved deeper in the stories, and then he created this monologue out of his pen.
Posso aggiungere soltanto che delle pillole di alcuni di questi monologhi sono stati interpretati e ci sono anche dei piccoli video che li così supportano.
We have made of some of these monologues. We have some very short extracts, which are recited by actors or women, and they will be very, very soon available also on our live archive.
Grazie mille, Marilisa, anche per queste precisazioni importanti. Adesso comincio a leggere le domande che ci arrivano dagli studenti. La prima in italiano ce la fa Grace, in italiano, e chiede: come mai avete scelto le bambole come un tema grande durante il film?
Rispondo io, Marilisa?
Sì, poi casomai mi aggiungo.
Noi volevamo fare un film nel 2016, non volevamo fare un archivio, quindi avevamo necessità di trovare un modo per legare, per esserci anche noi con il nostro racconto nel film.
So in 2016, we wanted to make a film and not the archive. So we actually wanted to have to find a way to connect our own experience with the others in the films.
Abbiamo vissuto un momento di panico quando abbiamo capito che quella disponibilità che chiedevamo alle nostre testimoni la dovevamo mettere in campo anche Marilisa ed io.
We really panicked when we understood, when we realized that what we were asking to our, to the women we interview, we actually have to do it also ourselves. So we have to open up and, our own experience.
Era molto rassicurante nascondersi dietro la telecamera.
It was very reassuring to be behind the camera.
E invece non si poteva. E quindi il nostro intervento è stato quello di riconoscere in noi stesse le nostre passioni, i nostri giochi, e per questo le bambole di carta sono state gioco di infanzia sia per Marilisa che per me.
So we decided that we have to bring forward ourselves, our passions, the plays we used to do when we were children, and the paper dolls have been, in our childhood for myself and Marilisa as well. So we thought that was something there to represent us.
E poi le abbiamo usate per far dire tutte le cose antipatiche che si dicono delle donne che non hanno figli.
And then we use them to make them say all the nasty things that sometimes they're said to women without children. So the nasty way to call women with no children.
Rappresentavano tutto quello sguardo antipatico e critico e giudicante che sentivamo nella nostra esperienza.
They represented the judgmental and nasty look that we felt from the outside for childless women.
Quello che si può aggiungere, se posso, è che gli anni 50 ci hanno accompagnato, anche con la parte musicale, sono musiche anni 50 quelle che accompagnano il film. E poi in questo modo noi ci siamo vestite con gli abiti di Grace Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in the movies it's very much present, the 50s are very much present also for the musical background. And so we had the chance to dress up like Grace Kelly, with Grace Kelly's dress.
Grazie mille per queste precisazioni. Vorrei solo rispondere a Grace che chiedeva quindi i monologhi, se sono quelli come quello recitato, come quello della Barbie. Sì, volevo solo precisare che ci si riferiva proprio a quei monologhi. So the impossible monologues in the films are those like the one, for instance, by Barbie. And the book, I'm just going to show you, the book has been published. So there are also 35 impossible monologues that have been published in Italian, at least. I don't know if it has been translated yet. I don't think so, right? Yeah. So I'm going to continue with our question. Madeline, she says, early in the film, you say that to exist is to have a name. However, do you find it necessary that women who don't have children need to be presented explicitly by language in order to feel validated by society? Quindi all'inizio del film viene detto che per esistere è necessario avere un nome, e quindi domanda Madeline se le donne che non hanno figli devono essere quindi presentate in maniera esplicita dal linguaggio per essere in un certo senso considerate dalla società. Avete qualche commento da fare per rispondere a questa domanda di Madeline?
Sì, anche questo è un bello sviluppo. Quando abbiamo iniziato a trattare questo argomento, e non è stato facile, in quegli anni veramente c'era tutto un altro clima. Dani?
So that's it's also a great development when we started to talk about this theme. And at the time, it was a very different approach. So the climate was really very different towards this topic.
E in quel momento abbiamo sentito assolutamente l'esigenza di ritrovarci in una casa, sotto un ombrello, in un termine.
So we felt the need to be like, to find our own house, to find like an umbrella under which we could actually exist, and the term, a word, was that house.
Sapevamo già da allora che poteva essere rivisto, allargato, ripensato questo termine, ma lì era un'esigenza molto stringente.
We felt that, with time, that the term could have been changed, could be broadened, could be more inclusive. But at the time, we really felt the urge to find a term for us.
Molte donne ci hanno rassicurato in questo subito. All'inizio ricevevamo mail e telefonate, dicevano finalmente abbiamo un nome, non siamo donne senza qualcosa.
We were reassured by many women who wrote to us and really supported this, because they found themselves a name, and they said that actually for the first time there was a name for us, and not a negative sentence to say women without children, non-mothers, and it was actually an affirmative term.
Poi nella nostra comunità online, nei social, hanno iniziato a farsi vive delle madri, dichiarando ma anch'io sono Lunàdigas, e ci hanno portate a intendere una maniera più larga di questo termine. Oggi per noi Lunàdigas significa donna che sceglie consapevolmente della sua maternità o non maternità.
So then, especially in our social media and Facebook, we started to have mothers actually get into the conversation, actually saying, although we are mothers, we feel ourselves Lunàdigas. So even the Lunàdigas term grew somehow in the way it broadened the people that included in it. So if it started to be Lunàdigas for the child-free women, now we intend Lunàdigas for women who freely choose about reproduction. So it could be mothers, it could be not mothers, but it's a free choice of reproduction.
Grazie.
Grazie mille anche per questa risposta. Vi leggo la domanda di Olivia, che scrive anche lei in italiano, quindi chiede: ci sono altre esperienze per le Lunàdigas che non sono cattoliche in Italia? Questa aspettativa di avere figli è una parte della cultura italiana o una cosa religiosa influenzata dalla Chiesa? So Olivia, I'm just translating in English for the other students. Olivia asks if the women are expected to have children because it is part of the Italian culture, or because it is influenced by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
La cultura italiana è fortemente segnata dalla Chiesa.
The Italian culture is strongly influenced by the church.
A questo si somma quello che scopriamo, uno sguardo sulle donne che, vista la potenzialità della riproduzione, molte culture, tante culture, direi tutte le culture, si interrogano sul perché non pratichi questa possibilità.
On top of the influence from the church in Italian culture, but probably not only in Italian culture, but many cultures, seeing how the potentiality of bringing children, having children, and the potentiality of reproduction, many culture actually wonders why you don't want to actually have children?
Credo che sia la cultura patriarcale quella che maggiormente segna questa condizione.
I believe it's patriarchal society mainly who actually influence this situation in many cultures.
Thank you, grazie. And if you have any follow-up questions, just let us know. The question we have asked so far, I believe the answer were complete, but if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to add them in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead. Amanda, she asks, within the Lunàdigas community, do you think older women or women who are considered beyond childbearing age are more respected? Did you find that younger women who don't have children faced any doubt from within the community due to their ability to still have kids in the future? Interesting question. Domanda Amanda, se all'interno della comunità delle Lunàdigas le donne più anziane o le donne che hanno già superato l'età riproduttiva sono più rispettate e se pensate che le donne più giovani, quindi quelle che hanno ancora la possibilità o hanno ancora dei dubbi di avere figli nel futuro, sono in un certo senso guardate con più sospetto. Penso di aver interpretato, spero di aver interpretato bene la domanda.
Posso cercare di rispondere io. Direi che è un po' vero questo, cioè non si richiede più alle donne che hanno superato una certa età, alla fine l'interesse, sapere se non hanno potuto o non hanno voluto avere figli diventa cala. Diminuisce, mentre continua ad esserci anche un po' cioè un bel po' di pressione sulle donne più giovani.
Yes, that much I'm afraid is true, because for older women who went beyond, you know, a reproduction phase, it's somehow less important, or they not so much focused on why you didn't have children. Was it because you couldn't have it or because you didn't want to have it? It's still there, the question, but not so much as for younger women who still feel actually a lot of pressure, because they get pressure from families and from society. And I add something also, you know, they think you might think otherwise in a few years, you can still change your mind. So there is a lot of pressure on this for younger women, certainly. Scusa Marilisa, vai.
Credo che sia sufficiente. Almeno.
Volevo solo appunto precisare, non so se la vostra risposta era specifica, quindi per la comunità delle Lunàdigas, perché Amanda sembra interessata proprio al punto di vista della comunità, quindi se all'interno della comunità delle Lunàdigas le donne più anziane o quelle che hanno superato l'età riproduttiva sono più rispettate, mentre magari le altre sono guardate con sospetto all'interno della comunità. Questa era la domanda. Non so se vuoi aggiungere qualcosa in questo senso.
Questo direi di no, non ci sono pressioni all'interno della comunità, fortunatamente, insomma. Vengono dall'esterno, dalla famiglia o dalla società in genere, soprattutto.
Yeah, we would say no, that there's no pressure from within the Lunàdigas community. The pressure is much more from the outside, always in terms of, you know, reproduction. In terms of within the Lunàdigas community, is very much based, as we say before, on a free choice. So it's no, there's no pressure for younger women.
Grazie anche per questo chiarimento. Adesso c'è una domanda di Simon, la leggo in inglese, poi la traduco in italiano. In the film, a group of women discuss a similarity between the queer community and childless women, in that they are both at odds with society's expectations for them and having to constantly justify their humanity. In what ways do you see childless women having to prove their humanity? Quindi Simon chiede, appunto, nel film si discute anche la comunità queer, quindi la comunità anche omosessuale, discutono a un certo punto di quelle che sono le aspettative della società, e anche in termini proprio di umanità. E quindi la sua domanda è in che modo quindi le donne che scelgono di non avere figli, le donne senza figli, devono provare la loro umanità o dimostrare la loro umanità, secondo voi?
Beh, sono tipi strani le donne che non fanno figli.
Mhm.
E quindi qualche domanda c'è, e qualche domanda si respira nell'aria. Che cosa farà nel tempo che le altre donne dedicano a quello? Perché è così disinteressata alla sua eredità, a lasciare, a percorrere questa avventura così meravigliosa che è la maternità?
Yes, because women without children are somehow seen as, weird women, in the sense that many people question, for example, what do they do with their time when all the others who are mothers actually have time with their children? Or do they not think about their inheritance, who they will leave their things? Why did they not feel the need to actually have children? So there are always the terms of, I add something from Nicoletta, the terms in the question to prove humanity is not probably so much to prove humanity, but you always have to prove something. So why did you not choose to do this? What's the alternative? Why are you doing this? As I said at the beginning, the first question is, why don't you have children? It's never, do you want to have children? Which is it would be a completely different approach.
Se posso aggiungere una cosa, c'è più rispetto per le donne omosessuali e sono più accettate dalla società quando hanno dei figli. Questo, a proposito di umanità, in qualche modo le rende più vicine, più comprensibili, anche da parte di persone che non comprendono certi tipi di scelte. E questo è verificato, insomma.
Even within, not within the queer community, but for gay women in our culture seem to be more accepted in society, those who are mothers, because somehow, even if some people may not understand some part of their lives, but they still can, relate to the part of parenthood. So even from people coming from the queer community, motherhood is still something that gives you a badge, that you can actually be closer to the rest of society.
Grazie, thank you. Claudia asks, in the process of all your interviews and research, did you get a sense that generally older women have more guilt about not having children than younger women? If so, to what degree does the guilt stem from teachings and traditions of the Catholic Church or religion in general? Quindi Claudia chiede se durante le vostre interviste o nel processo di ricerca per appunto fare il documentario avete avuto la sensazione che generalmente le donne più anziane abbiano un senso di colpa maggiore nei confronti della loro scelta di non avere figli rispetto alle donne più giovani. E se è così, quindi se è così che le donne più anziane hanno un senso di colpa maggiore, se pensate che derivi dagli insegnamenti e dalle tradizioni della Chiesa cattolica o della religione in generale.
Come abbiamo detto prima, anche dalla religione cattolica, che sicuramente impasta molto la cultura italiana, ma non solamente.
So as we said before, it's also due to the Catholic culture, but not only from religion.
Vorrei dire che abbiamo incontrato donne grandi che non avevano nessunissimo senso di colpa. Senso di colpa è una cosa che spesso è così tu come ti sei permessa di fare questa scelta? Ma ci sono tante donne che anche nel passato hanno fatto consapevolmente, ma forse un po' silenziosamente, questa scelta. Noi ne abbiamo incontrate e nel nostro archivio ci sono.
So all the women, they didn't have any, sense of guilt. The main thing, it was the question asking these women, why, how did you dare to do this choice? We have many interviews who actually relate to this question. So how could you choose not to have children?
Abbiamo sentito una donna pronunciare, ricordando una battuta di suo padre: se non fai figli, perché sei al mondo? Era un uomo dell'800.
We met a woman who actually remembered something that her father told her, and it's if you don't have children, why do you exist? So it was a man from the almost 19th century, probably the end of but it was that was the question to his own daughter. If you don't have children, there's no reason why you should exist.
Grazie. Allora Gianluca chiede in italiano: dal momento che ogni regione in Italia pratica usanze diverse, pensi che una donna che fa parte della comunità Lunàdigas sarebbe trattata diversamente se vivesse in una grande città come Milano o Roma, piuttosto che in una piccola città dove la religione è più importante? So Gianluca is asking about cities and countrysides or different regions in Italy. So if Lunàdiga live in Rome or Milan, is it different? Is she perceived in a different way compared to a little town or another region in the countryside?
Potrebbe succedere, questa differenza potrebbe esserci, ma mi pare di poter dire che sono più, come dire, le amicizie, la cerchia familiare, quella che una persona trova nel suo lavoro a commentare le scelte, piuttosto che una comunità vasta o piccola che sia, ecco.
So potentially, yes, it could happen, but at the same time, the people who actually question the choices of the women is not so much, society in a vast sense of the term, but it's more or less your inner circles, like your families, your people you work with, your friends. So it's much more closer people that comment or, have questioned your choice. So that could happen probably both in big cities and smaller cities.
Perché c'è un controllo a quel punto. Certo, in una grande città in teoria ce n'è di meno, ma il controllo c'è sempre comunque.
Yeah, you're somehow controlled. Probably in a big city is a bit less evident, like in a small cities, in small towns, but still it comes very much from your closer circle of people around you.
Grazie. Allora Aida fa una domanda in inglese. Many women in the film talk about not having children because they see it as a decision that relinquishes their freedom. Have you encountered any women who saw motherhood as liberating? Or do you think society can reach a point where motherhood won't strip women of their freedom? Quindi Aida dice che appunto nel film molte delle donne intervistate dicono di non aver avuto figli perché la maternità avrebbe in qualche modo compromesso la loro libertà, e chiede se voi avete incontrato delle donne che invece hanno visto la maternità come qualcosa di liberatorio, e se pensate che la società potrà raggiungere un punto in cui la maternità non priverà più le donne della loro libertà.
Certamente, qui entra in campo tutto un discorso anche economico, di sostegno alla maternità, che è possibile, è probabile, uno sviluppo. Vediamo i governi attuali sostenerlo moltissimo questo discorso.
Yes, this is so much to do with, the way motherhood is actually supported in many ways by society. So you need you need support. You need to be to have services to support motherhood in society. So it depends of how things will change and how the governments can actually change this.
Dobbiamo dire che questo non è mai stato il fuoco principale di Lunàdigas. A noi sono sempre interessate le scelte personali profonde delle donne.
This has never been the main focus of Lunàdigas. What we focused on has always been the choices, the deep personal choices of women.
Ben convinte che anche la condizione economica sia uno di questi elementi, ma ci è sembrato sempre il più facile da indagare.
Fully aware that the financial and economic situation could be, and background could be one of the reasons for choosing or not choosing to have children, but we wanted to investigate further because that's only the first, probably the tip of the iceberg, but that's not the personal reason for the women's choice.
Grazie mille anche per questo. Adesso c'è Isham che chiede, as a man from Jordan, the Arab world, I've seen firsthand how women can be looked down upon if they decide not to have children. What would you tell young men and women who live in such sites to better educate the people who are against a child-free life? Quindi Isham dice che come uomo che viene dalla Giordania ha notato spesso quindi le donne che scelgono di non avere figli o che non hanno figli essere guardate dall'alto al basso, e domanda appunto che cosa si può fare per educare meglio gli uomini e le donne che vivono in queste realtà per appunto non avere questa percezione contro la scelta di una vita senza figli.
Grazie, questa è una bellissima domanda. Noi possiamo dire qual è il sistema che abbiamo pensato utile noi.
Thank you. This is a very good question. We can say what we thought could be the way forward.
Abbiamo voluto parlare di questo tema. Era un tema silenzioso, era un tema che aveva intorno a sé una riservatezza che andava bene solo per l'amica del cuore.
We, as a system, we wanted to talk about it. That's what we did with the interviews, because that was a theme that up to them was very sort of silent. It was relegated to very confidential talks with your best friends, but never speaking out more publicly about this.
Molti possono pensare che dietro a una scelta, dietro a una condizione di non maternità ci sia un dolore.
Many tend to think that behind the non-motherhood, the choice not to be mothers, there is a pain behind this condition.
Lunàdigas certamente ha accolto anche testimonianze molto dolorose riguardo a questa condizione.
Certainly, Lunàdigas collected also in the testimonies from women who had a very painful situation behind this condition.
Però ci sono le voci schiette e felici di tantissime donne che affermano questo come un loro desiderio positivo.
But there are also so many voices of very honest and happy voices of women who tell about their experience as being their choice to do this. So a happy choice and not a painful one.
Proprio il primo festival che ha vinto Lunàdigas è stato un festival tunisino
The first festival where Lunàdigas won an award was actually in Tunisia.
Ha voluto regalarci questo bracciale.
And we had this bracelet as a present, as
Come
award.
premio, su
As
questo
an award.
bracciale c'è scritto il titolo del festival, che è Schuftu Hun, lo pronuncerò malissimo, significa lasciamoci guardare.
So the bracelet, on the bracelet there is the title of the festival, which is let us people look at us. That's the translation.
Crediamo che nel raccontare tante storie di donne ci sia la possibilità per le giovani donne che sono davanti a questa scelta di compierla in modo più consapevole. Questo è il lavoro che Marilisa ed io come regista abbiamo iniziato a fare tanti anni fa e non smetteremo più di fare.
We believe that the work that Marilisa and myself have been doing for so many years, and we don't want to stop doing it, is actually telling the stories of so many women. We help other women to actually tell their stories and have a different approach to their choice.
Crediamo che questo alla lunga possa fare educazione, cultura, libertà.
We think in the long run, this can actually be educational. This can bring a different culture toward motherhood.
Grazie mille. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions or some follow-up questions, please feel free to ask. You can write them in the chat. We still have a few minutes. You can write them in the chat, or you can raise your hands and ask them directly to the Lunàdigas. I would have a question that is a kind of follow-up question about what we have discussed, since it is interesting to notice how the Lunàdigas has changed also how it is interpreted. So it goes towards the decision, any decision, so any free decisions from women. I'm just curious to ask you something about labels. So we need, as we said, we need to be told that we need to have a name in order to exist. At the same time, sometimes those are labels and we can feel them as a label, which can also create sometimes differences between women and bring women apart instead of opening a discussion. You wanted to open a discussion, and you opened a very open discussion where any woman could feel at home, I believe. But sometimes we can still see that women are against each other, so they are judging each other's choices. So non-mothers and Lunàdigas are still somehow apart. I just wanted to ask you your thought about it, since I don't believe it was your idea. So you are trying to do something different, but this is part, I believe, of our contemporary way to react towards things. Quindi riassumo. Importante avere un nome per essere definite, per esistere. Questo è uno degli aspetti di cui abbiamo discusso, che viene anche menzionato nel film. A volte però ci sono anche le etichette, no, che vengono attaccate alle persone, quindi anche quella che è mamma, quella che non è mamma, e questo non era la vostra intenzione, quindi il vostro progetto in realtà va proprio nella direzione di includere, di permettere a tutte le donne di parlare delle loro libere scelte, però a volte ci troviamo di fronte a queste discussioni dove vengono ancora poste delle etichette e questo crea delle differenze più che dei punti in comune. Vi chiederei le vostre riflessioni su questo aspetto.
Beh, direi che l'unico modo per affrontare questo tipo di atteggiamento è proprio continuare a parlarne. Continuare a parlarne proprio ampliando anche la platea delle persone alle quali chiediamo di dire la loro.
I think we think the only way to actually deal with this kind of approach is actually to broaden the discussion to as many people as possible that can talk about themselves. So it's not only one against the other, but you have a more diverse sort of audience, if you want.
E a proposito della possibilità di creare delle etichette e di farsi così appioppare delle etichette, a proposito proprio anche della scelta del nome Lunàdigas, che è riferito, Nicoletta ed io l'abbiamo usato in modo molto ironico e autoironico.
Also talking about labels or being labeled, the term that we use, that we chose, Nicoletta and myself, we chose it also in a very ironical and with a very good dose of self-irony.
Infatti Lunàdigas è una parola della lingua sarda che è riferita per la maggior parte delle volte agli animali, pecore in particolare. Ma è per questo che l'abbiamo usata ironicamente, tutt'altro che un'etichetta.
So the term Lunàdigas comes from the Sardinian language, and it is used to actually indicate, it is used for usually for animals, especially sheep ewes who do not procreate in some season. And that is obviously a self-ironical way to actually use the term.
Questo.
A proposito dell'incontro Lunàdigas Mamme, noi lo troviamo interessantissimo. Abbiamo bisogno di parlare tra noi e di parlare tra noi con le giovani generazioni.
Talking about the match between mothers and Lunàdigas, I think it's something that there is a need for this somehow. There is a need to talk to new generations and to both Lunàdigas and mothers and talk to each other.
E qui c'è la brutta notizia. Qualsiasi siano delle scelte così intime, così personali, le società nelle quali viviamo si permettono di additarle e di chiosarle, di commentarle. E questo al di là del fatto se abbiamo 7 figli ne abbiamo troppi, se ne abbiamo uno come non gli facciamo il fratellino, se non ne abbiamo per niente siamo egoiste.
Yeah, the bad news is this: whatever your choice is in our society, we always be questioned about our choices. If we have 7 children, we have too many. If we have only 1 child, or he will be or she will be lonely without a brother or without siblings. If we don't have children, why did we choose not to have children? So whatever choice a woman will do will always be questioned by society somehow.
Thank you very much for your answer. Grazie mille per questa domanda, per questa risposta. Are there any other questions or something else that you might want to add according to what we have discussed so far? Something we forgot to mention and that it would be important to add for our discussion. We still have 5 more minutes, so we can still probably take one question or address one more topic. I don't see other questions in the chat. So I believe we have addressed many of the aspects we will discuss in class next time. We're going to meet again on Thursday, and we're going to have a presentation by Grace, still on the Lunàdigas, but we're going to address the article written by Giusy Di Filippo. Quindi sto dicendo che continueremo la nostra discussione giovedì in classe con un articolo scritto da Giusy Di Filippo, e avremo una presentazione da parte di una delle nostre studentesse, Grace, per cui potremo continuare questa discussione, e se ci sono altre domande o altri dubbi ve li faremo avere, così che possiate rispondere a quelle che magari sono le domande che emergeranno anche dalla lettura dell'articolo di Giusy Di Filippo. C'è qualcos'altro che piacerebbe? Sì.
Laura, mi farebbe piacere ricordare a tutti delle persone presenti che il sito di Lunàdigas, che si trova facilmente in rete, è tutto tradotto in inglese appunto, e che quindi anche l'archivio vivo è esplorabile per persone che non conoscono direttamente l'italiano, e la nostra è una comunità aperta, è un movimento con il quale interloquire, e abbiamo le pagine Facebook, e può essere interessante continuare a dialogare anche lì.
We just wanted to remind you that we have our website is all translated also in English, and we have our Facebook pages, and there are, many channels to actually still go ahead with, with talking together, because it would be very interesting also for us to have, to talk further about this. And so we have all the channels. I just put the website address on the chat, so if somebody wants to go and have a look, we are there.
C'è una parte di Lunàdigas che consiste nel condividere dei racconti scritti. Ci piacerebbe moltissimo avere dai giovani studenti di questo corso una loro posizione, il loro sentimento di fronte alla scelta di maternità, di paternità. E per noi sarebbe una grande fortuna poter dialogare anche con voi attraverso le vostre testimonianze scritte.
There is a part of Lunàdigas who also have written things, that we share with people. So it would be very interesting if any of you wants to share their own experience in writing, and we keep having a dialogue open also through this channel. That would be really an honor for us to have another, new voices added to our
Si può scegliere l'anonimato.
Ah, yes, it can be anonymous. It must not be signed for sure. No, non ti sentiamo.
Thank you so much for this. I guess it's going to be another great opportunities for our students, and I'm gonna remind also your website on our Blackboard page, so that if students are interested in investigating the topic further, they can get in touch with you directly. And we're gonna keep talking about Lunàdigas and motherhood and non-motherhood during the semester. So we have also plenty of time to let you know also some of our feedbacks and projects and final project as well. If you are interested, we will keep you up to date. So, vi terremo informate perché parleremo di maternità e non maternità durante tutto il semestre, quindi se ci sono degli aspetti che emergono anche nei progetti finali ve lo faremo sapere. Io vi ringrazio tantissimo per essere intervenute in questo corso, per averci presentato il vostro progetto, aver portato le vostre prospettive, il vostro punto di vista. So che la nostra collaborazione continuerà, per cui ci sentiremo, ci ritroveremo ancora, e vi ringrazio moltissimo per il tempo che ci avete dedicato. Thank you so much for...
Grazie a te, Laura, a tutte le persone presenti, e a Daniela un grande abbraccio e ringraziamento.
Grazie.
So, thank you so much, Nicoletta, Marilisa, and Daniela. And for my students, we're gonna meet in class on Thursday with our presentation on the Lunàdigas project. If you have any questions before Thursday, feel free to email me. And also for Grace, who's presenting, and you're going to be the first one to present. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for coming and for presenting your project, Nicoletta, Marilisa, and Daniela. Have a nice rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, take care.